Welcome back to the Tears of Fire podcast, a podcast where I go over the Last Dragon Chronicles by Krista Lacey, and today we're going to be finishing the book of Firestar, starting with chapters 59 through 64. It's going to be quite a bigger section, but I figured instead of waiting and putting out only 2 chapters next week, we just finish it out. And then hopefully next week, next week we will have a guest returning, Miss Kaylee, to help me bridge into book 4, The Fire Eternal. So, thank you for joining me. I hope you had a safe flight in and hit no turbulence. With that, let's get into the show. We start this section with chapter 59, Abbot Hugo's office, 15 minutes later. I do believe that most of these chapters could have been combined into make a couple of bigger ones instead of a few of them that were smaller, just like I've been saying in the past couple of episodes. But here we pick back up with Brother Darius, who has been taken control by the Fane, starting to ask Abbot Hugo questions about what's been going on with the Dragon Claw, with the dragon itself, and just the strange events going around this island. Abbot Hugo shares what he knows about the Claw and the story that Brother Vincent has been writing. Brother Bernard is standing behind and doesn't really have a good feeling about things. He can see that Brother Darius has nefarious plans, or feels that he's not really part of the Brethren. As Abbot Hugo's talking to Darius, Brother Terence comes in and he's screaming that he saw an angel. He's blubbering about and not really making too much sense, but he's saying that he saw an angel and he tried to reach out and touch it. Fine black hair, and that's about the only description that we get. Abbot Hugo seems concerned and tells Brother Terence to stop saying these riddles and that none of it's true, but Brother Darius, being under the control of the Fane, knows better. The Fane is confirming that these suspicions are correct and that there's powers at play here that nobody understands. He relays over to Brother Bernard and Abbot Hugo that Terence had not seen an angel but a bird, the raven, and in some beliefs, the raven signifies protectors or enemies. It just depends on which side you stand. And we never really got which side this raven was supposed to be on. We don't know. We never got an interaction of the raven with Darius or with Bernard, simply just that the raven was near and around the dragon. So in my opinion, I kind of got the feeling that it's on the dragon side. Not the human side, not David's side, not Darius's side, on the dragon side. After a short conversation, Brother Darius asks what happened to the claw. Brother Bernard gets a little suspicious, but he tells him that the squirrel took it. Abbot Hugo thinks this is nonsense, but Brother Darius says this is true. He's looking into Brother Bernard and can tell that he's not lying whatsoever. After this conversation, Abbot Hugo tries to rush Darius along to go see the dragon. He just wants to get this over with, and he says that he called for help from the outside of the island in order to deal with this specifically. Darius says that he's not ready to do that, and he wishes to commingle with Arthur. That wording kind of confuses Abbot Hugo, and he wants to know what that means, but Brother Bernard cuts in, saying that he's wanting to communicate and understand. He now knows that through reading Arthur's or Brother Vincent's writings and communicating with the dragon itself, that commingling is what these beings called the Fane do and how they operate. Abbot Hugo is quite concerned and doesn't wish really to have Brother Darius go speak with Arthur, but seeing that he believes Brother Darius is still the one helping out and has no idea about the Fane, he agrees. At the same time, we cut over to the stable block where there was Brother Cedric watching over the dragon, and he notices a light explosion in there. And it wasn't necessarily an explosion. What it was is that the power cut out and one of the old light bulbs broke down. And when he went to go investigate and see what was going on, he found some wires that had been severed, and he said that it looked like it had been chewed about, as if a rodent had gotten through. And so in here I have in my notes, was Snigger the one helping out Obviously, that's the only that's the only rodent that we know about. And Snigger's either being extremely smart, maybe coming into contact with something else that improved his intelligence level. But we haven't seen or we haven't been told that he's been in contact with the Fane, so I'm not quite sure. That's going to bring us to the end of that chapter. That was pretty short, pretty quick, but brings us into chapter 60, which is very short as well. Abbot Hugo's office, 90 seconds later. This one's short and sweet. I do think that this could have been combined with chapter 59, though, because all that happens is that Abbot Hugo's phone rings. And the book goes on to describe that this is an unusual occurrence, and Abbot Hugo is not too familiar with how phones works. He knows that he has a user manual, but it's a hassle to have to deal with, and he just wishes that technology wasn't really a thing. But the person who calls him is Liz. She says out her full name, Elizabeth Pennykettle. She's there, or not there, she's leaving a message to ask for David, who should be showing up there any moment. She says that he's in grave danger, and that he either needs to call her immediately or come home, no questions asked. She then stutters a little bit and says that if there's somebody there by the name of Brother Arthur, to give him a message that Liz never really left. And that's all that happens in chapter 60. I don't know, I mean, we know that David is going to be in danger, period, when you're fighting against forces of evil and these Fanes that are almost godlike in their presence and not really a physical being. There's no way to fight something that you can't see or touch. You can't even really hear it. They just communicate in your mind. So maybe some hardcore mental meditation, fortifying of that to make your defenses harder. Kind of like in the inheritance cycle with Aragon, where they use magic in order to read minds or control somebody if they're able to get in. But through meditation and focusing solely on one thought, you're able to lock it up and nobody can get in. It's kind of the feeling that I got, but that wasn't really described here. So that's going to bring us into chapter 61, Stable Block Barn at the same time. So we cut back to Brother Cedric right after he was done checking the wire, and things are starting to go haywire. He can hear a couple of things breaking and snapping when he runs over to check on the dragon. Since the light's out, he grabs a lantern, and even though Grockle is in the cavern, he's still pretty sizable, and he's kind of thrashing about. Something is helping him, in my opinion. It was Snigger, but we don't really get that information brought to us. But it says that the binding around his abdomen and his wings was snapped through, and he's starting to extend them and flap them harder and faster, trying to break through. After his wings were free, Grockle starts pulling with the chain on his neck. He was able to pull the legs, not necessarily free, but break the wood beams that it was attached to. The book described that the wood was weakened because it had insects that ate through the wood in it, and so it was already kind of structurally failing. You know, maybe termites or some of that nature. And so it didn't take much, but this freaked out Brother Cedric. He ended up dropping the lantern and it broke, spilling a bunch of the oil everywhere. But there wasn't a fire quite yet. What we get is this description of Arthur almost controlling Snigger in a way. He's closing his eyes and dreaming, and everything that Snigger sees, he's able to see. He's able to see the lantern, and it's not very far away from some straw, and he thinks that if he can cause a fire, that he's able to open up the brothers' minds and hearts to see that Grockle is a savior instead of a demon. However, before he's able to use Snigger to start the fire, Brother Darius walks in and puts his hand on Brother Vincent's eyes while he's closed, and he tells him to wake. Wake. Twice he'll yell. And it says that Brother Darius is very quiet for a second, and I'm guessing the Fane is talking to him. We just don't get to see the interaction between the Fane and Arthur whatsoever. But then it says that Arthur is left in kind of a stupor. He's not able to comprehend what's going on and left in a coma state. During this, a bunch of the monks are starting to run over, yelling that there's a fire going on. There's a fire. We need to get this under handle. And so Darius looks down at Brother Arthur and says, "This is the finale," and walks off. My question was, is Grockle still in the barn since this is supposed to be happening at the same time? It's cutting away. We don't get to know exactly what's going on. After the connection was broken between Arthur and Snigger, was Snigger able to keep the concept of what he had to do? And I hope that Snigger doesn't end up a little barbecue man. That's pretty sad. We're going to get on to the next. During this time, all the brothers are coming out to fight the fire, and as the dragon is starting to break out, the dragon Grockle, it says that he's grown about the width of a scale. So, I mean, pretty sizable. I'd say a couple inches overall, but this guy's just growing exponentially. But these monks don't know what to do. So, Brother Bernard takes a second and he begs all of the monks around him to start praying. Pray for this creature. He is crying out in pain. He has a soul and he has feelings. Pray to God to release him and take him to a better place. At the same time that this is going on, including Abbot Hugo getting on his knees to pray, David shows up. It's on the other side of the island, but it's close enough to see for Darius and the other few monks that are over there. And David comes up telling Darius that he's going to kill him if he hurt Liz, because he can understand, he sees him, that he knows that there's something going on. At the same time that David is showing up, Darius looks up to examine the fire star and notices that it's not quite at its zenith yet, but tomorrow it will be, and so he needs to enact his plan quickly. That ends that chapter. And this is pretty fun. We finally get the mention by one of the characters itself that this is the finale. You've been feeling the energy build up. And the next two chapters are going to be very, very long with a lot of stuff happening. And I'd love to hear what you guys thought about the whole situation. So now we're going to get into chapter 62, David and Darius. David could tell that something is up with Brother Darius, and that he knows that the Fane is in there. Brother Darius calls David the master of the clay beans and asks him how he became so powerful, basically. David's not really paying too much attention and asks to see Arthur. Bernard can sense the energy growing and says that there might be a duel here, so he starts to back up a little bit. That's also when David decides to threaten Darius and the Fane, saying that if he hurt Liz or anyone else, he's going to kill him, period. The Fane tries to talk to him, and he suspects that David knows the secret of the fire tier. So he starts interrogating him, but David gives nothing up to him. During this time, where it's a pretty tense interaction between Darius and David, Bernard is backing up. And to David's surprise, he went around both of them and picked up one of the pieces of wood that was on fire, saying that he's blistering his hands, and cracks Darius atop the head extremely hard, just toppling him over. During these few seconds that Darius is down and the Fane is, out of commission, Gretel flies out from nowhere, essentially, and shoves these flowers into David's face, saying, "Smell them, quickly." David listens, and his brain goes a little fuzzy, and out of nowhere he gets a major headache. He hears ringing in his ear. His vision is kind of going fuzzy, and the Fane's speaking to him in his head, saying that he's got control of him now and there's nothing he can do. At this point, David could feel the Fane in his mind, probing, looking through his memories and his knowledge, and he says that Fane knows that David has this. The Fane knows that David has this information in there, but David is able to, with the help of Gretel, keep his mind closed enough to where none of the information slips out. Once the Fane realizes that he's not going to get any of the information out of David, he leaves. David explains what's going on to Brother Bernard about the Fane and why he's come here, and he asks to see Brother Vincent. Brother Bernard explains that Brother Vincent or Arthur is out of commission and that he's kind of in a coma state. He might not be able to get anything out of him. At that very moment, Groin, the dragon, also shows up with a shimmer of energy around David. David knows that he needs to somehow get to the Arctic, so they go together. So him and Brother Bernard go to see Arthur to see what they can do. And that ends that chapter. And now we get into the big chapter. Ooh, one thing I did forget to mention in the previous chapter, chapter 61, when the fire was going on in Grockle, Grockle does eventually get away, and I forgot to mention in the previous chapter that when Grockle got away from the fire, it gave him enough energy to put fire in his chest, and he's able to breathe fire now. So now we get into chapter 63, The Tooth of Ragnar, February 14th. In this chapter, we're going to jump around quite a lot between points of view from Lucy, David, Zanna, the bears, even Tega. So you got to kind of bear with me. It's a big one. But we're going to start with Lucy. And Lucy wakes up from her hibernation mode. She's pretty scared because when she first passed out, she wasn't with the bear. The bear had found her when she was in that coma state. And she can just get terrible smells. She can smell she can smell the feces from the bear, as well as the rotting meat from what it was eating. And at the same time that Lucy is waking up, this mama bear wakes up. And the mama bear is kind of hesitant at first. She's looking around to see what's going on, and she's sniffing the air. She realizes that there's male bears surrounding the island. She's not too sure how she feels about that because she knows that they can either be there for a fight or for something else, but she's unaware. She doesn't know about these plans whatsoever. But she does decide to keep her vow no matter what, that she will protect this human cub to the death if it becomes that. We then switch perspectives to the leader of the male bears, Ingavar, which we haven't seen him in quite a while. But we get a scout bear, we didn't get a name from him, saying that he senses two humans coming from the west and the south. Ingavar asks them if they seem to be a danger and if one of them is the girl that he spared. The bear says he is unsure as of right now, and so Ingavar gives orders to just surround them and keep them in one place, but do not harm them. After this order was given out, the scout bear then speaks of the female scent that they got from the island. Ingavar is a little hesitant. He asks if there may be cubs there, but the scout bear says they couldn't find any sense of cubs. So Ingavar says to just chase them away. He does not wish them harm. He does not want to kill them in any way. This is between them and the dragon. After that conversation between Ingavar and his general, we then switch points of view very quickly to Zanna. We see that Zanna is pulling up with Tega and the sled dogs. They are approaching the bears. And what I was wondering is that the bears had said that there were two humans approaching from different directions, but if Zanna and Tega are coming up from the south, is there another human coming? Why was the number off? Should it have been 3 that were coming? Because we know David's got to be there eventually. But if Zanna and Tega were the 2, they'd be coming from the same direction. Once Zanna and Tega get close enough, they stop the sled and they try to communicate with the bear. With her magic, Zanna points down to the ground and puts the mark of Amara into the ice. The bears then bow to her, and she seems to be able to communicate with them almost. She asks where the leader Ingavar is and for them to take them to her. We jump back to Lucy's perspective. She's asking the female bear questions, and I'm not sure if the female bear understood her or not, but Lucy couldn't understand the grunts and the moans that the bear was doing. But once she decides to show the bear the little trinket she found between the hair and the isosceles, they can both hear a dragon call. And my thoughts was it didn't seem like this was a moaning from the deep cave, like when they say that Gawain is breathing. So was this Grockle coming? We then switch perspectives again very quickly back to Ingavar and his group. The Fane come over and takes over Ingavar's body and says that they have common enemies. They are here to kill the dragon. Ingavar tries to fight back, but the Fane says that this will be in vain because he's much stronger than him and there's no way that he can remove him from his brain. Once the Fane is done, it concentrates his energy into the Tooth of Ragnar that had implanted itself into Ingavar's face. He dislodged it, threw it on the ground, and convinced Ingavar to destroy it. Once Ingavar reels up and stomps on the tooth, it creates a huge fracture in the ice, going all the way up to the island itself. And, just to put a little bit of comedy in here, this made me think of the movie Ice Ages with the little squirrel Scat or Scrat, and how he's finding his acorn, and once he, pushes it into the ice, it makes a huge avalanche and, pretty much causes the entire movie of Ice Age. So once the mountain starts being destroyed, we jump back over to Lucy. She's being thrown around the cave because obviously this is like an earthquake. The island itself is sinking into the ocean, and Lucy's trying to get her footing, but the mama bear saves her. She starts pulling her out by her clothing, and it's got to be absolutely freezing since they're out in the Arctic. And then once the island is actually in the water, Mama Bear is swimming around, and she realizes that Lucy was smart enough to hold on to her and jump on her back. Lucy is very cold. I would think you would die of hypothermia very quick out there. Even if you're on a bear's back and the bear's got a warm body, there's just no way. That water's got to be near, if not freezing, and your body would start to give out quick. At this point, we did get Grockle coming over, and everybody saw him. Lucy, Zanna, Ingavar. Ingavar got the first sighting, and he was curious because he says that the great bear Thorin said that the dragon would come from stone, not from the sky, but it would look like a terrible bird. After Ingvar destroys the Tooth of Ragnar, Grockle is very upset, and he comes down and absolutely flames Ingvar. It says that it burns him. He watches the bear turn from white to brown to black ash, and there's nothing left, not even the bones. During this whole commotion, the ice is breaking up everywhere. Tega and Zanna are left on an ice patch, kind of like an island. It says that Tega's dogs were thrown into the water and they drowned, dragged down by the sled, which is absolutely terrible. He's obviously got a huge respect and relationship with them, and to listen to your dogs being drowned and to watch that happen because you got roped into this and you didn't really have anything to do with it has got to be terrible. What I was wondering is if when Grockle blew his fire to destroy Ingvar, if he destroyed the Fane with him, but we quickly find out that he didn't. The Fane was able to escape, and he takes over Tega. Tega was extremely close to Ingvar, obviously, since him and Zanna were interacting with each other at that point. And so Tega has his gun pointed right at Grockle. Grockle had landed, and he's confused, not sure what to do after he just got the last glimpse of his father, Gawain, being sunken into the ocean to never be found again. And as Grockle is distracted, it says that Tega is pointing the gun at him and starting to squeeze the trigger. Zanna finds Lucy in the water and pulls her off the bear's back, and the bear is able to pull herself up too. Zanna orders the male bears to surround Lucy and start to warm her up to keep her alive. Zanna sees what's going on by using a pair of binoculars, and she's worried about Grockle. At this very moment, though, is when the fire star starts to get to its zenith and a beam of light comes down. Zanna realizes what she has to do, and she yells out to Grockle, telling him to go to their world. Grockle, without hesitating, flies away, and as soon as he hits the beam, is transported out of our world. At that very moment, David also pops in, and he was able to transport through space and time with the help of Groin. It explains that back when they were on the island, Gretel was able to make a potion strong enough to get Arthur most of his senses back, even though he might be mostly blind for the time. And Arthur was able to help David with the information he needed, fill in some gaps here and there, and teleport straight to the Arctic. David and the Fane are going back and forth. David's telling him that he will not win whatsoever, and the Fane doesn't really take this too serious. What he does is he takes a chunk of ice and throws it at David, and while it's in flight, it shreds itself down to a spear point almost and hits David in the chest. And that really surprised me. I thought maybe David was going to turn into Superman and either block it or catch it and then rethrow it, but no, he gets stuck in the chest. David starts bleeding out slowly, and he's almost antagonizing the Fane, saying that no matter what he does, he will lose. The Fane kind of chuckles at him, makes another ice spear, and throws it into David's heart, which I would think would kill him almost instantly, but he doesn't. The Fane says that this will be a slow death for David because it's the ice. It will slow the blood, causing him to die. David had a plan, though, and was able to somehow control or contact the spirit of Ingavar, and the spirit of Ingavar reaches in and whacks Tega, killing the Fane in the process. Says that Tega's body goes limp, and with a breaking of ice from the bears, Tega's body drowns into the ocean to join his dogs and spirits. It was a pretty surprising ending for me for Tega, because I mean, overall, he was a good guy. He just believed, he just had his own beliefs. He was scared. He was, wanting to be one with the spirits of the Inuits. And he died for really being forced into helping it for Zanna. David is slowly dying, and Zanna comes over to him. She's screaming and crying, and she wants to talk to him before he passes. They have a nice conversation, and David asks her if she realizes what day it is. He says that it's Valentine's Day and he got her this dragon. He hands her a dragon and says that she'll have to name it and the name will come to him. After David passes, Zanna tells the bears that are surrounding them to hold on a second, and she just wants to hold him. We didn't get a specific time, but after Zanna was comfortable, she let the bears do what they needed to and said exactly that. Do what you must. So 4 bears came and surrounded the spirit of Ingavar and David in the 4 cardinal directions, sending David and Ingavar to the depths of the ocean together. And that finally brings us to the end of that chapter. And mostly to the end of the book. The next 2 chapters are going to be part of the epilogue. But man, again, from the last episode, I had told you guys that I didn't exactly remember how these books were going to go. And I didn't remember David dying in the 3rd book. So that was a little heartbreaking, especially the way that him and Zanna had to interact. I was having to hold back some tears. I had my girlfriend sitting on the couch right there, and we'd been spending the day together, and I was trying to be the tough guy, not be, David, but it was pretty interesting. I had to read out loud to her to just make sure I was getting the full range of emotions and make sure that I wasn't being crazy. But so that's going to bring us to chapter 64, the epilogue, Wayward Crescent, 3 days later. And Brother Bernard comes over with a big cage. We obviously are in Massachusetts at the Pennykettle's house. It says number 42. He's walking up, and before he can even knock on the door, it busts wide open. I'm not sure if they knew that they were coming or if Lucy had just seen somebody walking up, but Lucy opens the door, sees Snigger inside of the cage, and is just ecstatic. Bernard comes in, and Liz gives him a quick warning about the cat Bonington, and that as long as he's okay, everybody's okay. Brother Bernard is more than happy. He says that a cat is one of God's creations, and he'll love him no matter what. They go to sit down and speak together. Liz is asking him questions and asks if the events on the islands are going to be spoken about outside of the island. Brother Bernard does tell her that he is a historian and he works for the abbot on the island and that he will have to document it, but he'll make sure those are locked far, far away to where nobody's going to find them by accident. They do bring up Arthur, and Brother Bernard says that his intention was for Arthur to be coming back, period. Lucy is convinced that she wants Arthur to be there for her mom. Liz isn't quite sure how she feels on that and just wants to make sure that that this is what everyone wants and that she doesn't want to force old history just because it is old history. We get a little bit of comedy, though. We get it broken up by Bonington starting to have a little bit of a low growl, and Bernard wasn't too sure what that was at first, and then Bonington comes into the room, and he has grown fangs. They say that he looks almost like a saber-toothed cat, and he's still the size of a house cat, but yeah. And that brings us to the end of that chapter, and then into chapter 65, and the last chapter of the book, Scrubly Library, Scrubly Library Gardens, February 29th. So about a week and a half has passed, and now we get Liz, Lucy, Arthur, and Zanna all going together to release Snigger. So it's a nice little catching up slash time jump, knowing that Arthur got to get back to the love of his life. Lucy seems to be happy, and Zanna's pretty upset. She's crying at the mention of David, period. But they're talking and they go to release Snigger, and as they do, they talk about how David is still with us here in spirit. Zanna says that it's more than spirit and pats her tummy, letting everyone know that she's pregnant with David's baby. Lucy's extremely excited. Liz gets emotional. Arthur just smiles. And Zanna starts to cry, obviously. Liz says that she's going to be there to help no matter what, and she expects Zanna to move in, period. Zanna says that they'll think about it and have to discuss it because it's quite a full house if it's going to be the four of them. But obviously, I mean, Zanna could just have David's old room. Arthur's going to be sleeping with Liz, and Lucy already has her own room, so it shouldn't be too much room. Maybe once the baby is there, that might be a little crazy, but who knows? Who knows? Zanna also goes on to say that Gadzooks had been communicating with her, and he wrote down a message, the name Glant, spelled G''Lant, and that was a message from David. She said that David told her the name for her dragon would come that she got on Valentine's Day. Arthur, Liz, and Zanna all say that this story is not over, and they release Snigger and end the book. I don't think I could really do justice to the big battle scene. It jumped back and forth a lot. If you guys have read The Lord of the Rings whatsoever, it gave me very much Lord of the Rings for 10-year-olds vibes, you know. But the death was unexpected. There was a lot of death between a lot of big characters. I mean, David being our main character for the past 3 books, sacrificing himself. Ingavar, who I thought was kind of David's counterpart in the bear world, at least, he's gone. So he's no longer going to be the leader there. We have no word on Gwilana and what happened to her. As far as I know, that she's still locked in bird form and in an ice block. The Fane is dead, or at least the older Fane. We're not really sure what happened to the younger Fane, other than it's still locked in Bonington, as far as I'm aware. Zanna's now pregnant, and I'd love to see what's going to go on with that child, between David and his abilities of writing the future, and Zanna being a Sibyl and having her own magical abilities. This child has got to be almost a child of prophecy. I don't really have too much to say because next week we're going to be having the bridge episode where me and Kaylee are going to be going over this book 3 completely and then trying to look forward and have theories going ahead into the Fire Eternal. If you guys have anything that you would want to recommend or something you would like to hear us talk about, please hit me up. You can comment here on Spotify. I'm on YouTube. You can also hit me at the email gadzooks@gmail.com. I hope to see you all here next week. Thank you for joining me. Have a safe flight out, and hit no turbulence.